Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Prepared. We got a doozy for you today. It's going to blow your mind. Before I get into it, I want to say a big shout out to Colorado Craft Beef Company for sending me their meat sticks. Your cylindrical meat sticks in various flavors are my favorite so far. We'll see what else you got. Feel free to send samples. I want to say, based on what I was just sent by Greg Anderson, my mind is blown. You won't be surprised. I mean, I'm blown because the details as I go down them basically outlines putting me out of business and not allowing me to do anything that I started 10 years ago with Fieldcraft Survival. As a caveat, let's just rewind time a little bit before we get in the weeds of this. As a caveat, I started Fieldcraft Survival, but I've been teaching civilians for over a decade. I started teaching civilians when I was a team sergeant at Fort Carson, Colorado in 10th Group. As I was teaching civilians, it was kind of new to me. I didn't understand, like, how do you translate training that you did in the military and make it applicable for civilians? And there's a path to that. And as I started doing more of it and getting more popular on social media, I was attacked by individuals that now train civilians. I'm glad they came around, but members of special operations who were like, you should not be doing this. And I always stood on a platform and said, we should always be doing this. We should always be training civilians for the worst case scenario. I mean, I don't know if you guys know this, but I wrote a whole book about it. This isn't for the military. This isn't for government organizations or law enforcement. It's built out of a curriculum and an experience in training civilians. In 1 year, I've trained up to 10,000 civilians and everything from personal defense, survival, first aid, the list goes on. I mean, Program 62 is a 12-week academic preparedness program that my family preparedness director, Amber, started that we offer online right now. You can go through all the things, including personal defense protocol. All of that would be illegal. So anyways, I was attacked because it was like, you shouldn't be training civilians. Why shouldn't I? As a Green Beret, you send me overseas, you give me a C-130 of ammunition, weapon systems, and I train and empower people who are civilians, who are now fighting for their sovereignty, fighting for their freedom, in many cases, fighting for their own personal defense and their family's safety. And that's okay, but it's not okay for American citizens to be better trained in all the things. We should be training civilians in all the things all the time. But you're not. You're coming out with bills that are potentially banning it and everything that we stand for. Get a text from Greg Anderson, and Greg says, hey, man, have you seen this bill? Sends it to me and Andy Frisella. It's probably the most monitored text conversation in the U.S. government. So he sends me a bill. This bill is titled Preventing Private Paramilitary Activity Act of 2024. Now, it's an amendment to Title 18, the United States Code, to prohibit unauthorized private paramilitary activity and for other purposes. What other purposes would those be? Now, I will say it's available at congress.gov. I will link it down below so you can read it in detail, but I'll go over the highlights as this bill was introduced by Senator Edward Markey, a Democrat, go figure, of Massachusetts. So let's get down in the weeds of some of the highlights of this. This will start to blow your mind. Here we go. These are the things that you can't do. 1, you can't publicly patrol, drill, or engage in techniques capable of causing bodily injury or death. Imagine if I went to Greg Lappin, my professor at Fieldcraft Jiu-Jitsu, and said, hey, let's focus our jiu-jitsu curriculum on not causing any bodily harm or injury. So that rear naked choke, yeah, we can't do. Rear naked hugs only. Every single thing we do in defense, in personal defense, is built off the premise that you're causing potentially bodily harm and or death. So you can't do any of that because if you drill it, it's illegal. Number 2, interfere with, interrupt, or attempt to interfere with or interrupt government operations or a government proceeding. Now, that's pretty vague. What does that mean? If I step inside of a government committee or public event and I speak out against because I'm literally interfering, then that's against the law? No, that's called me exercising my First Amendment right. You're talking out of turn. Interference. It's against the law. Number 3 says, interfere with or intimidate another person in that person's exercise of any right under the Constitution of the United States. Oh, Wow. Wow. So we have a bill infringing on constitutional rights, but also advocating that you can't, if you're on the certain team, interfere with anybody else's right to exercise their constitutional rights. Wow. The oxymorons that wrote this. Let's continue. Assume the functions of a law enforcement officer, peace officer, or public official, whether or not acting under color of law, and thereby assert authority or purport to assert authority over another person without the consent of that person. So Heather lined this out, and I think it's very spot on. What if you're literally engaging with a criminal, stopping them, trying to mitigate risk because you have them locked down in your potential home, or you get into a engagement with them because they're trying to kill you? And under this law, they would outline that you were assuming the functions of a law enforcement officer because you said freeze, stop. We are allowed to do that already. I wonder if this, like many of the radical bills that have been proposed, are supporting the criminal. Because if you're a criminal and you're a law-abiding citizen, which in every way, especially in places like Massachusetts where this is being proposed in the federal government, you literally have no rights. So if you say to somebody in your house, get on the ground, don't move, because they're holding your TV and you're waiting for law enforcement officials to arrive, potentially you could be civilly or federally prosecuted. Yeah, that's some vague and indefinite terminology there. Number 5, trained to engage in any activity described in paragraphs 1 through 4. Any activity. So you go out because you and your wife want to be better prepared in self-defense working as a couple. Training in that activity, potentially you're a militia and you're organizing as a paramilitary organization and you're going against the law because you're armed, and you're training against the law because you're getting self-defense training. Yeah. That's not okay. That's not okay. So this entire bill is literally vilifying anybody, any American citizen that trains responsibly, more capable, and more deadly against criminals and terrorists and tyrannical governments. They want to make you dumb. They want to make you fat. They want to make you lazy and dependent on the institution. And now they want to make you vulnerable. Because if you're vulnerable, you need the institution. You need the protection. You need the security. You need the government. And it's disgusting. I'll talk more about this in the underground with details as well. Last but not least, hey guys, we got this back in stock. This is the Low Vis Fanny bleeding control kit, tourniquet, and my Macro X SIG pistol is in here. All the stuff that I carry every day could fit in this. It's back in stock, and the link's down below. So guys, I'm off to Hawaii, to Kona, to the Big Island. I'll be doing a pistol course, a fundraiser for the victims of Lahaina, and a survival course. You can find all the links down below. I appreciate you guys. I'm off to the underground on patreon.com/Mike Glover. Peace out, guys.